Do you want to improve at a quicker pace? Check out GITGUDRacing.com, where I'm offering the most accessible coaching sessions on the market. Now for the track guide. This isn't by far the perfect lap. I had to do some adjustment to my rig this week and unfortunately I wasn't able to nail it, so my pace is not yet as it should be, but still I'm gonna point out in this track guide all the mistakes that I did and how you can do it even better than this lap that I have here. So coming with turn one, one thing, we want to align ourselves having the right part of the car past the white line. So under braking, what I found that the off-track limit is having the antenna almost past the middle of the white line and the first crack in the right part of the concrete here on the exit road, let's say. So you want to brake with your antenna, let's say, more closely to the white line than to the middle, because if you're gonna go past the middle of it, it's gonna be an off track. But definitely you don't want to brake with the antenna at the white line. You're not gonna use all the track. So braking in a straight line, braking hard initially. I plan to take it as a double apex, but I want to track out wider in the center of the track, which doesn't happen in this lap. So I'm taking a more like a U-shaped line. What you should aim for and what it will be faster if you carry just a bit more speed into the corner. So if you're gonna brake a bit later and push the car, at this point the car should be a few meters more to the center of the track, and then you're gonna be earlier on throttle and cut this curb as well. So you still want to be as close as you can to these red sausage curbs, is that you just want to carry a bit more speed and a bit more confident on throttle. Moving on for the next corner, I use as a reference for braking and turning the end of this curb. You can do it a bit later than what I did here. This was a bit too early. It was a bit harder for me to judge the turning point with the new rig, but aim to turn and brake when you stop seeing this blue and white, like 1 meter forward, and it would have been perfect. And you want to get as close as you can to this red sausage curb, and at this point when you're here you want to slam the throttle, you see. So you're gonna control it in the beginning, but then you're gonna slam the throttle using all the curb, and the next corner is the same. So here you can turn a bit earlier, and in this lap this corner was quite good for me. So you don't need to turn late, you can turn early because you have a lot of space on the exit. Also the car will comply. Instead that you just have to do a small lift to make the front tires point, and apexing as close as you can again to the red sausage curb, and by the time you're almost at the sausage curb you want to be back on 100% throttle. So it's just a small lift, and you can go a bit more to the left, like your left tire can barely touch the sand and it still won't be an off track, and still it won't slow you down. So in this corner you can push it more than you think. For me it would have been ideal to not do the second lift, you see here the small lift, and just keep the throttle pinned. But carrying the speed into the next corner, I use the second board as a reference for braking. Slightly before it I'm applying the brakes, and I do one small mistake here. You want to trail in this corner in 4th gear, so still trailing, but I missed the apex. So it's a fine margin here. You want to, like in the previous corners, you want to have your left tire almost kissing this red curb. You see I have some space here, and you using all the track, it's gonna gain a lot of time, because you, at this point, if you are at the red curb, you can be back on throttle immediately. But since I wasn't having the positioning right, I have to delay the throttle application up until here, which is way too late. So aim to be on throttle at the red curb like previous corners, but there's something else about this corner which makes this curb even more ideal for using it. It's this angle that it has. So this curb will hook your car and it will make your car turn more to the left if you go over it. So there are two main reasons to use it. One, it's this, to make the car turn and point more, and the second one to be earlier on throttle. So don't miss this curb. It's better to slow the car down a bit more on N3 than missing this curb like I did here. Going back on 100% throttle, and for the next corner it's the same thing with the curb. I use as a reference for turning the second board again, and this corner you can't really see it. It's better to do gentle movements of the steering wheel, because if you're gonna move the steering wheel too sharply, you might miss the corner and then you can't really correct it. But if you're gonna do it progressively, even though it will be a bit slower, like let's say 0.02 slower than just going fast with the steering wheel, it's gonna be a lot more consistent. So what I'm doing here is a more conservative approach, which I think is gonna be better for the race pace. So at the second, I'm applying some steering angle and I'm doing a lift. I'm just barely touching the brakes right now to make sure the car will point, but you can do it even without the brakes, I'm pretty sure of it. And again, before getting at the red, you want to be back on the curb, and see, this is gonna hook the car up nicely, and you can use even more than what I did here. So notice that there's still a bit of space that it can be used. But the main idea is to not slow the car down. You need to carry a lot of speed here. You don't need to brake a lot. You don't need to do a huge lift. You still want to be back on throttle at the curb, or even earlier actually. And what you should be mindful is on the exit here. You can't use all this curb. This looks tempting, but if you're gonna put your tire all the way to the sand, the car will bottom out and you will lose time. So this curb is kinda strange because it lifts you on the left side, so you don't really can exploit it so much. I would advise on actually cutting here, so the whole focus being here to cut as much as possible, so you don't get pushed wide here like this. For me it was decent because the car didn't bottom out, but in other attempts the car did and it felt slow and I lose like 1/10. Now going into the corkscrew, I use as a reference for braking the beginning of this curb, the white part of the curb right here. You're gonna apply the brakes, but you're not gonna brake hard because right now you have a crest and you have less grip on this part. So this is a corner in which you have two stages of the brakes. You have to brake softly here and then harder here. You see I'm picking past the crest and then trailing. So it wasn't perfect for me either. What I would suggest is brake softer here, but then when you're going here, brake way harder than I did. And you can brake a bit later, if that makes sense, with the second stage. So you can apply the hardest part of the braking around here. You see, like right now for me, I'm dropping the brakes. You can do something like braking lighter initially, holding it, and then right now braking harder, so that you will carry a bit more speed into the corner, because right now you have more grip available to brake. Trailing into this corner, you want to be as close as you can to this sand, and think about this corner and this corner like taking them almost in a straight line, a straight diagonal line. So the way that you're gonna be able to do it is if you're gonna position your car in a way that right now you almost go straight to meet the next corner. You see, there's not a lot involved in rotating the car, and you should be close as you can to the sand on both curves. Then back on throttle, and right now the main purpose is to take the left-hander flat or with a 5% lift, no more than that. So you will have to go to the right edge of the track, and then you see I do this lift was too much. You should aim to do half the lift that I did here, because ideally you want to be as close as you can to this red curb, even closer than I was. Don't really use this curb. If you're gonna use this curb, you won't have enough time to reposition. So it's one of the few instances in which using all the track isn't really helpful, because yes, you're gonna carry a bit more speed, but if you're gonna be like almost to the sand here, to the gravel trap, you won't have enough time to properly reposition. So I would say use a bit of curb, touch it, but don't go at the limit, because it won't yield any positive results. Now for the next corner, you want to use a bit more curb than what I did here, and you can brake on this curb because it's a small brake. It won't unsettle the car, so push the car more to the left. This will give you a better angle, and this will make you hit this red sausage curb. You want to kiss it with your right tires, because it will hook the car up nicely and it will allow you to carry more speed. But notice that I didn't brake that much, it was just like 10% braking. And for the last corner here, you don't want to use this curb for braking, so you want to brake with your tires at the white line. If you're gonna put your tires on this curb, it's gonna unsettle the car under braking and you're not gonna brake efficiently. So you're gonna brake on the white line with the tires past the 2 board. You're gonna pick it maybe even harder than what I did here. I think this was a bit of a lazy braking for me. In second gear, trailing at this curb, and at this point you want to be already back on throttle. So what I do here is a bit too slow. You want to slow the car down in time until this corner. So the idea is, the main mistake that I did here was dropping the brakes too quickly. Like I'm hitting the peak here and now I'm dropping too quickly to these percentages. I should have held it a bit more and then drop it, because right now I would have slowed down the car in time. So at this point I should be able to be back on throttle, but right now I'm not. So I'm on throttle almost here, which is way too late. So the main focus is being at throttle at the red curb or closely to it. But what you should focus on the exit is using all this green, and don't force the car to the left. If at this point you're gonna steer left so that you will bring the car back to the track, you're gonna scrap speed. So keep the car straight and let it arrive on the track on its own, so you won't use the front tire and you won't scrap speed, because you can use this exit track on the right side of the white line without getting an off track. And in short, that's a track guide for Laguna Seca. I wish you have a great week ahead, and I'll see you on the next one.